looking at the number 41 car of Bertrand Baguette. Now, he lost out in the pit stop because they had that problem closing the door. He's now got into a bit of a rhythm here, John, and I think, if anything, he is lapping a bit quicker, isn't he, than the Aston and Martin ahead of him.
Well, in the last lap, it was actually 9/10 of a second quicker, so there we can see the difference, 8/10, 4/10, 3/10. So now that Bertrand Baguette has got into the into the 4 GT in the race, you might call it race mode or race chip, the car will feel different to how he drove it during practice, during qualifying, and of course for the first time into a car like this, all the senses. The car has also had the benefit of being on track for the best part of 30 minutes with Maxime Martin. So, as I say, it's the feelings. You've got to readjust your brain, and suddenly the car that you thought was good in one place may not be so good.
Now, what's this coming into the pits? The number 7 Aston Martin. I wonder why that's happened. It's Thomas Enger, and must be some sort of problem, because you wouldn't expect a pit stop at this stage in the race. Can't see any visible damage, but something has clearly gone awry for the number 7 Aston. Meanwhile, Bernoldi has got back past Bas Leinders, and this time I think he might have held on to the place. Yep, Leinders doesn't respond, not yet anyway. So Enrique Bernoldi has snatched the place past the Ford. He's up to 9th place. That drops Bas down to 10th. Piccioni, after his drive-through, is in 11th. And what about championship leaders Michael Crum and Lucas Lohr? Of course, Lohr is in the car now, but outside the top 10. He's down in 12th. The incident at the first corner really damaged their hopes. Their car is still running, but the number 23 Nissan doesn't look to be scoring any points, and it's not going to end up with a great grid position either for the championship race. But as we've seen, a lot can change during the course of the race. There you are, back with Turner and Dumbreck. Still nothing to choose between them.
No, I mean, two bits. They know each other very well. They live in Banbury, they socialise, they do sporting activities together. So it's a real cat and mouse job between Dumbreck chasing the Aston Martin. Darren knows where to put the Aston. He knows that's the bit of the racetrack that Peter Dumbreck will be looking to use. And just good, clean racing from two good, clean professional drivers.
Here comes Bertrand Baguette then. This is for 3rd place. Remember, you're looking back from the Hexus Aston Martin as Christian Hohenadel, race winner from the Saxon Ring. Very impressive drive that day from Hohenadel, who has adapted to these GT1 cars very effectively. He told us it took him a while, and here comes Baguette. Yeah, a lot of pressure on Baguette here. First time he's ever driven one of these cars, and he's got a potential podium finish. You're looking back from the Aston at him, and Baguette, so far, I'm impressed. He hasn't done anything, you know, sort of wayward. Still got a bit of time to go.
The big difficulty is that the Lamborghinis are 18 seconds down the road from the 3rd place Aston Martin. Now, when we saw Maxime Martin in the 4 GT, he managed to get through. Now he's dived up the inside.
He's had a look
into turn 13.
He's done
15.
Into turn 15, the last corner. That was a late lunge up the inside, but Bertrand Baguette, well, I said he's sort of still waiting for his moment, but he chose it, and that's always the best way. Just go for it as soon as you're in range, and he's done it. But the Aston trying to come back at him, but he can't do that through the kink.
No, that was a courageous, again, an unexpected move from Bertrand Baguette, typical of a single-seated racing driver. Opportunistic, sees the gap, tries to make it work, and there's a big problem for Nissan. Is that a fire extinguisher, I think, has gone off in the car?
That's Bernoldi out of the car. That's a great shame for Enrique Bernoldi. Just gone past Leinders, if you remember, so whatever's gone wrong there, that Nissan is out.
Well, either the car caught fire, which I don't imagine, or suddenly the extinguisher has been jettisoned, and that's why he couldn't drive the car. It's full of fire extinguishers.
So the Ford has got up to 3rd place. Bertrand Baguette, let's just see how he did that again from outside.
Yeah, I mean, typical slingshot move. Come out of a fast corner, sweep down the inside, compromise the car you're passing, take its pace away, and then you've got control. And the Aston really didn't get any advantage in the switchback. As we look back at the Nissan, we still aren't aware of the reason why that car came to a stop, other than, to me, it was the extinguisher appeared to be extinguishing something.
So Enrique Bernoldi is out. That brings Clivio Piccioni back into the top 10, despite his drive-through penalty earlier on. There you're looking at Lucas Lohr, and it's brought him up one. He's up to 11th place, so it has helped him. The car's still running, it's just not been at its normal competitiveness. And this is what happened when Bernoldi just pulled off a moment ago. You're riding on board, and he just pulls off to the side of the track.
Well, there's a rumble of some description, and whether that's... He leaps out of the car, and is that smoke or something something's filling in the car, whether it's oil that's smoking or whether there's no flame that we can see. But he was waving frantically at marshals to come, and help him with some extinguishment.
So, looking at this battle, you've got Jamie Campbell-Walter now in the first of the Nissans in this race, the car he shares with David Brabham. So they are currently top Nissan, and they've got a chance maybe of gaining another place. They're looking at fourth. They're trying to get fourth place away from the Aston just ahead of them.
Well, certainly he's been carving into the advantage the Aston has. He's taken the best part of 1.7 seconds out over the last 3 laps. So Jamie Campbell-Walter doing a 39.7 against a 40.1 for the Aston ahead. Oh, but a bump over as Baguette comes out and really clumps the exit of turn 8 and didn't do the Ford an awful lot of good. And again, those 2 cars following, Campbell-Walter and Hullenall, will be hoping that's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be a hero at this point, Baguette, because there's really no chance of closing up to the 2 Lamborghinis. He's just got to settle in third and make sure he finishes there. Still got this battle for 6th between Darren Turner and Peter Dumbreck. Lights ablaze on Dumbreck's car, it's not going to make too much difference. Behind them is Engelbert in the Corvette, and he's doing well. He's staying with the pace here.
He's not only doing well, he's actually lapping at the pace, if not back in the last lap, was quicker than the 2 cars ahead of him. So this is by far and away the best run we've seen from Engelbert in the Corvette, but in the 2 events that he's taken part in.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. GT3 racer in the past, and Renault Megane racer, but he's certainly doing a good job here. Look at Dumbreck. He's got as close as ever to the back of Darren Turner's Aston Martin, but not sure there's anything he can do with it.
Well, the thunder of the Nissan going down the pit straight as opposed to the scream of the V12 Aston Martin. Peter Dumbreck hoping that he can force Darren Turner to make a little error coming through turn 2, but Darren just slows it down, makes sure his car's in the part of the racetrack. That's going to be the important part. And then Peter Dumbreck knows he's always going to have to wait until the Aston starts to accelerate before he can then get on the throttle as well.
Both front-engine, rear-wheel drive cars, of course, but the Nissan bigger, taller, more muscular kind of machinery, the Aston more svelte, and as you say, that V12, that turbine-like V12, just giving him the edge at the moment. Enrique Bernoldi's made it back to the Sumo Power pit and he's trying to explain what's happened to the car. They all want to get their hands on it, of course, so they can fix it for tomorrow. So they'll have to wait until the end of the race before it's recovered. The Corvette's still behind these 2 of Dimitri Engelbert. Then there's a gap back to Bas Leinders. Bas is still running in 9th place. 10th place for Clivio Piccioni. They are removing a car there. And then behind them, Lucas Lohr.
I think that might have been the Bernoldi Nissan. They wanted to get clear. And again, Darren Turner can just stretch a few feet between turns 10 and 11 and keep the Nissan at bay.
There are the 2 Lamborghinis. We haven't seen them for a while. That's because they're running away with this race currently. The gap between them is just under 3 seconds, but the gap between them and the 3rd placed Ford, there is the 3rd placed Ford, is 16. No, in fact, it's even more than that, isn't it?
It's 19 to the lead, but 16 to the 2nd place Ford.
Yeah, incredible. A really good margin. Let's get down to hear what happened to Enrique Bernoldi now.
Enrique, what was happening out there for you?
Well, the temperature is very, very hot outside, so I started to feel some smoke in the car, and then I had some flames, maybe some electrical part just burned, and as the fire was starting to go more while I was driving, I had to stop close to a fire marshal, so it's a shame.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I wonder if that's related to the high temperatures here. I mean, we've been talking about it a bit, but whether it is temperature related or just one of those things. Meanwhile, that 3rd place car just going through.
Well, the ambient temperature has been hovering around 36 Celsius.
So the number 41 Ford there, Bertrand Baguette, holding on to third place, and it's a fairly lonely third place because he's eased away from the others. We had sorry about the technical problem we had there. You lost us for a while, and that was because we suffered a major electricity failure in the building that we're in. So sorry we lost you there, but we are back on board. So Darren Turner still managing to fend off the Nissan of Peter Dumbreck. That's the race that's going on currently for 6th place, but the Corvette joining in the fun and games. This has been cat and mouse, as you said earlier on, John.
Yeah, and Gilbert is the one that really, I think, is most threatening. I think Darren Turner and Peter Dumbreck are frozen into their respective positions, 7th and 6th, but Angel Bear, I think, maybe might fancy getting between these two cars or ahead of both of them if the opportunity should arise.
So it is still the two Lamborghinis leading the race, those of Marcus Winkelhock and Dominic Schweger. There's Jamie Campbell-Walter, and he has got ahead of Hohen Ardel. So that was a place gained by Jamie Campbell-Walter. He's been looking at doing that for a couple of laps. Let's see how he did it here. Again,
it's down into turn 8. That's at the end of the back straight. And again, Hohen Ardel saw him coming, gave him room, hoped that he might make the cut back, but couldn't do it. It's a good, clean pass from Jamie Campbell-Walter down the inside, just gets the car. Again, the Aston saw the Nissan coming, pulled away from the corner, gave it to Jamie Campbell-Walter, and wasn't able to come back on the exit of turn 9.
Now that was pretty generous from Hohen Ardel, but it was sensible too, because otherwise they would have both ended out of the race. So he was very conscious, very aware of just keeping the car in one piece. This is, after all, the qualifying race. If that had been the championship race, things might have been different. He might not have been quite so generous, but that's a sensible bit of piloting from Hohen Ardel. Race leader still is Marcus Winkelhock. He scored that pole position earlier on today. The cars have been all fast in qualifying, but the number 37 car in particular has had all sorts of problems this year. Does look as though they are going to be able to bring it home for a decent result this time. They have had some good results this year already, but not as many as their teammates. So this will hopefully boost their chances somewhat. They had that good second place finish at the Sachsenring. A little bit out of luck at Silverstone, but they're on form here. And meanwhile, it does look good for Max Martin and Bertrand Baguette. Looks as though Baguette is going to get a podium on his debut.
Yes, and you have to think that in reality, after that disappointing pit stop where the door didn't appear to close correctly, that spoiled the race for that third place Ford GT. They're now 20 seconds behind the lead car, 16 seconds behind second place. Nevertheless, I mean, the Lamborghinis here have dominated the qualifying race.
And Lucas Luhr has had a really tough race with a car that's not been right after some contact earlier on, but it is in 9th place, and at the end of the day that's going to put him on the 5th row of the grid for the championship race. So although it's been a tough afternoon for the series leaders, it actually hasn't worked out too badly, and they should still be able to deliver some points come tomorrow. Remember, in this qualifying race, it is only the top few cars, the top 6 cars that score points. There will be 8 points to the race winner, 6 points to second, on down to 6th place, which means that Darren Turner, if he can continue to fend off Peter Dumbreck, will still score a point. But the guys outside the top 6 won't score today. They will if they finish in that same position tomorrow.
Well, it's amazing just how one circuit can switch on to one particular manufacturer, and today clearly the Lamborghinis have got an advantage. The only issues that they had were the very high temperatures at the start of the race, the concern that they didn't want to have to push their cars any harder than they needed to do until the opposition themselves had to drop back for similar reasons.
Yeah, and final lap we're on now, so it's all looking good for an alinkle.com 1-2 in the qualifying race. In theory, that would give them the front row lockout again tomorrow, but it won't, because the number 37 car will suffer a 5-place penalty on the grid for an extra engine use this season in the championship. But nonetheless, this has been a tremendous display by both sets of drivers in a car that clearly works well here.
Indeed, and what's going to be very exciting is the prospect of Maxime Martin being on the front row alongside the lead car here, and we know how quickly that car goes.
So the race victory in the qualifying event here at Navarra goes to Marcus Winkelhock with Marc Basseng in their Alinkel Lamborghini. Second place to their teammates Dominic Schweger and Nicky Pastorelli. An absolutely superb display by the team, and Marc Basseng congratulating each and every member of that team. But scoring a podium finish on his debut in the GT1 World Championship is young Frenchman Bertrand Baguette, fresh out of single-seaters into a Mark VDS Ford GT. There's his teammate who drove such a great stint earlier on. He finishes in third. Fourth goes to Jamie Campbell-Walter, sharing with David Brabham. Fifth back to the Hexus Aston of Hohenadel and Piccini, and after fighting the whole latter part of the race with his good friend Peter Dumbreck, it is Darren Turner who finishes 6th for Aston Martin. 7th goes Dumbreck, 8th for Engelbert. Lovely result for Engelbert, he'll be well pleased with that. Lucas Law finishes 9th. Clivia Piccioni finishes in 10th place, and then coming through in 11th is Christopher Nygaard, the car shared with Vanina Ix, and despite a couple of extra pit stops there, at least they still earned themselves an 11th place finish, because we had several non-finishers. Bas Linders pulled off at the side of the start-finish straight a little bit a few laps ago. Benoldi had to stop. Enger failed to finish with a heat-related problem, we gather. Verdonk and Hazemans, of course, their car was hit up the back by Piccioni. That's caused their retirement, and we lost Antoine Leclerc quite some time ago. So few non-finishers, maybe heat-related, some of those, but no such problems for the Lamborghinis that dominated.
No, and a clean race from both the Lamborghinis, in spite of getting at one point rather close indeed. Two teammates racing into turn 8. Good news is there was relatively virtually no damage to any of the cars. Corvette got clipped on the left rear, but that I think was a fairly superficial piece of damage, and good to see clean race from the entire field.
Yeah, that's right, and some good racing, I must admit. I thought some of those moves that Max Martin made particularly were very good, and Baguette himself, when he went for the move up the inside of Hohenadel, that was a very clean, determined bit of overtaking, which is exactly what we want to see. Big thumbs up from Marcus Winkelhock, and you know, he really has taken to GT1, John, hasn't he, Marcus Winkelhock? You know, a very experienced DTM driver, had that little opportunity in Formula 1, but GTs seems to be his thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's a naturally quick guy who's raced in highly competitive race series. You know, racing in DTM sharpens up every aspect of your racing culinary skills.
Yeah, that one Grand Prix for Spiker was back in 2007 when he led amazingly at the Nürburgring. I mean, it was a bizarre race, but a lovely claim to fame. Just the one race, you lead it, and then you go off and do something else.
And particularly your home race too.
Yeah, that's right. It was a fairy tale, wasn't it? He raced in World Series by Renault. He raced in Formula 3 before that. Son of the late great Manfred, of course. Manfred Winkelhock, great Grand Prix driver and indeed sports car driver himself. So victory 1-2 for the two Alinkel teammates. We saw them chatting, if you remember, in the garage in the early part of the race when their two teammates were having quite a big old dice. I'd love to have listened in on that conversation. But there are the two Mark VDS guys, and they are well chuffed. Bertrand Baguette with his helmet still on, being congratulated by Max Martin, and they have made a tremendous combination. Baguette from Verviers in Belgium. He's Belgian rather than, I think I said he was French earlier, didn't I? And he actually is Belgian, so my apologies for calling Baguette Frenchman, and he is a Belgian driver, and he's come into GT1 and he's impressed everybody immediately.
And again, starting in the front row of the grid for the championship race tomorrow, that Ford alongside the winning Lamborghini. In terms of the drive from the start up to turn 1, 2 and 3, well, the Lamborghini ought to have the advantage. Nevertheless, the Ford handles sufficiently well, and Martin very, very strong.
So on the phone immediately, the guys, but making the most of this qualifying race. Dominant performance from Alinkel. And once again, our apologies if you were following that race and you lost us for a while there. We suffered a major power failure here, so we were unable to keep the commentary going for you. Hope it didn't spoil your enjoyment too much. And we've still got a championship race to look forward to here this weekend. See what these guys can deliver, and see if any of those that didn't do so well today can perhaps force their way through in the championship race. But it's been very, very warm. The temperature maybe just, well, it's around the 35-degree mark still. These cars will be sitting there very, very hot indeed.
Well, the trouble is they come off the racetrack and the heat soak is so great. Obviously, when they were doing their slow down lap, they were slowing down as much as they possibly could do. But there is the car of Michael Krum. We saw, Bernoldi, we saw him evacuate that car rather rapidly, and explaining that there looked to be an electrical fire. He said he saw flames in the car. Hopefully nothing more severe than just a small electrical fire.
Yes, that's right. Hopefully they can get that car back and sort it out as quickly as possible. So the guys just assembling. We'll hear from our podium finishers. Let's hear from the winners first of all, Marcus Winkelhock and Marc Passin.
Congratulations, what a result for you, Mark.
Yeah, it's an incredible team effort from us. If you saw what we had last year and what we have this year, 1 and 2 in a qualifying race, amazing. The gap was great, huge, and so I'm really surprised. I'm really happy for the team, for all the work we did. Marcus did a phenomenal job, pit stop was good, I'm happy.
Marcus, a great bit of racing with your teammate there.
Yeah, it was just a great race. He did a good job in the beginning, me at the end. And yeah, as you said, it's a really good result, I think, for the whole team. P1 and 2, I think with that we can be really happy. And yeah, now I'm looking forward for tomorrow. The car was fantastic, the whole race actually, and yeah, looking forward for tomorrow.
Thank you.
So, all done as they hoped, and that was the moment that Marcus Winkelhock brought the car home, took the checkered flag with a very comfortable advantage in the end of over 3 seconds to his teammate. But, of course, their teammates did finish in a fine second place, Dominic Schweger and Nicky Pastorelli, and I think, bearing in mind they've suffered some bad luck over the season, they'll be pretty satisfied with that. But they do have a 5-place penalty tomorrow. Let's go down to the pits. They're talking to Haley.
Dominic, a great result for for the team. We saw you earlier chatting to Marcus before you went out. What were you discussing?
Well, we are just discussing about the pace and how we manage it to get some gap. I think the pace of the two cars were pretty similar today. And yeah, obviously not so happy that we pitted second, because that cost us the race. I think I did the quickest lap time, which is nice to have, but obviously it's more important to be on the top. Nice for the team to finish 1-2, but I think we could have done better.
Nicky, you'll be collecting some points, but unfortunately you will have a penalty and you'll lose 5 places on the grid tomorrow. But do you think you'll be able to make up those spaces?
Yeah, for sure. If we have the same speed as we had today, we should be able to do that. So I don't see any big problems for tomorrow.
Thank you, guys.
It's going to make the race interesting when they're fighting their way through from 7th place. It'll be, of course, on the grid. So make life interesting in the early laps, I would think.
Oh, yeah, I mean, once you're compromised by other cars ahead of you who you're naturally quicker than, but it's not being quicker than them, it's a matter of finding a way past them. And that will be a frustration for Dominic Schweiger and Nicky Pastorelli, because there will be some pretty quick cars there, not least of all the 4GT of Martin and Baguette and Campbell Water and Brabham and the Nissan.
Let's get down to our 3rd place finishers, the Belgian drivers Max Martin and Bertrand Baguette.
Congratulations, Bertrand. What a result for you in your first GT1 World Race.
Yeah, it's my first race, so I'm very happy to finish 3rd. Maxime did a fantastic job. It was a lot easier when I got in the car, so he just had a little problem with the door, the pit stop, but except that the car was quick, the guys in the team did a fantastic job, so I'm very happy.
Do you think you would have made it a little bit more time if you didn't have the issue with the door?
Yeah, but I think we were quite far from the Lamborghinis after the pit stop. Also, we had a problem with the door, but I think they did a better pit stop. But yeah, we did a great race, and 3rd here for tomorrow, it's very good. So I think we have a good car for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, that car did look rapid throughout the race, so there's no denying the fact that they could give the Lamborghinis a bit of a hard time. So well done to Max Martin and Bertrand Baguette. They seem to be a pretty impressive combination. So the Lamborghinis taking a 1-2 finish here at Navarra, with the Alincourt cars dominating of Winkelhock and Basseng ahead of Schweiger and Pastorelli. But the Martec Ford, or the Martec powered Ford, the Mar VDS car of Baguette and Martin, a fine 3rd. Jamie Campbell-Walter and David Brabham, top Nissan in this one, in 4th, ahead of the Aston Martin of Christian Hohenadel and Andrea Piccini, and then the young driver car of Darren Turner and Stefan Mucker. The Nissan next up of Richard Westbrook and Peter Dunbrake, they finished 7th. 8th place the Corvette, good result for Engelbert and Michael Rossi. 9th place for the Nissan of Michael Krum and Lucas Law, who had a pretty tough afternoon, to be honest. Then the Aston of Piccioni and Dusseldorf. They had a drive-through penalty, remember. Nygaard and Iggs finished in 11th place, and 12th place went to Bas Linders, despite not finishing. They actually were 5 laps down at the end because the car was pulled off to the side of the track. Quite a few non-finishers. Bernoldi and Katzberg in their Nissan. Enger and Muller failed to finish in the Aston Martin. The Corvette, which got damaged, of Hazemans and Verdonk. And Claret and Leclerc also failed to finish. So that's the situation at the end of the qualifying race, and some points have been scored, of course, by Basseng and Winkelhock, which should have just narrowly put them into the lead of the championship once again, but it will, of course, depend on what happens in the main race. There we are, let's just confirm that. Basseng and Winkelhock on 75 points, Krum and Law dropped back to 70 points, but still only a 5-point gap. 63 points for Hohenadel and Piccini, very much in the hunt, ahead of Mucker and Turner. Then Dusseldorf, Piccioni and Enger and Muller, who are going to have a tough afternoon tomorrow because they're going to have to be starting at the back of the field. further down the order. Hazeman's, who could have scored well today, but ultimately, of course, failed to finish. Pastorelli and Schwager, they got in the points, and it gives them the chance to score more tomorrow. Dunbrack and Westbrook, though, well, they're having a bit of a tough time of it. They're not scoring the sort of points that they were hoping for and indeed expecting in the early stage of the season. Well, you can see the cloud just beginning to build up there a bit, John. There's no doubt that the weather conditions could change for tomorrow. Look at the team's championship. Hexis AMR on 127 points, but Alinkol only 7 points behind them. It's very close between those two outfits. JR Motorsports in third, just 2 ahead of Young Driver. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Sumo Power, Mark VDS, Swiss Racing and Belgian. So there we are. Yep, as I say, the weather conditions are possibly going to change. Let's take a look at the highlights here of that qualifying race then, and this was the start of the race, and straight away, as expected really, we did get some incident down into the first corner. The Lamborghini on the outside of the front row took the advantage, swept into the lead in the first corner, but then, John, there were various things going on behind.
Well, into turn 2 we saw contact somewhere along the line. Stefan Mucker was involved, and then in turn 3 it got slightly worse. 4 cars, there's the 4 GT being spun around, contact, and on the exit, and there was the Corvette of Michael Rossi, who started 15th and made his way up to 8th place on the opening lap, biggest beneficiary. So just on the exit, the 4 GT, and I think that was self-induced, but further back the Belgian Racing 4 GT did clearly get tagged, and then 4 cars end up on the outside of the track on the exit of turn 3.
Let's go and hear from another runner from that race, Andrea Piccini, who finished in 5th.
Andrea, great placing at 5th place, so it should be a good start for you tomorrow in contention for the championship this weekend.
I think it's good. Some points for the championship. The cars we are fighting with are quite far back, except the Lambo that is always in front. Actually, I think they are a little bit too fast from the beginning of the season, but the balance of the performance didn't hurt them so much. We will try to do our best tomorrow. I'm sure if there's no problem, they will win again because they have such a big gap to all the others. But we will try to fight for the podium and just close the gap as much as possible and open the gap with the other cars. So I think it's all right for us.
Thank you.
Patience required, but patience delivered by some of the teams today. 1 or 2 maybe made mistakes, but Hohenadel and Piccini, they got that 5th place, and it means that they've got a good starting position tomorrow, and it's all about scoring points as consistently as possible. Win when you can, when you've got a car on a track that suits, but score the points when it doesn't suit so well. So just looking across these dry plains here in northwestern Spain, reminding us a little bit of California, John, but let's take a look back at the full highlights of the race now.
To some extent this was all about a high plains drifter. Lots of that going on here this afternoon.
And the race start saw the Lamborghinis shooting away into the distance. Behind them it was going a little bit crazy. There was some contact with the Mark VDS Ford. That was the Belgian car though, spinning down towards the back of the pack. Then we saw the 2 leaders going at it pretty hard, didn't they?
Well, you've got to make your chances. You can't expect a drive through from the car that's leading the race, even though it's your teammate, but they gave each other just about enough working room. But this was the real race going on. Marcin Martin and the Aston Martin, and a great dive down the inside into turn 10 to take that position away, and a cheer from the Ford Mark VDS team.
Yeah, that was a lovely move. Another look down that inside move on the Corvette, squeezed through on the inside, got some great reaction from the crews as well, and then managed to make the move stick in the end.
Yeah, Verdon came back strongly, but again the Ford just in position enough to get the inside line into turn 8 and consolidate that pass. Then the round of pit stops, drag your co-driver out, whatever it takes, wheels off, and the battle of the pit lane, we saw this, the Corvette coming out with the Aston just literally trying to fight its way through.
Yep, and then Piccioni got past Mike Hazemans, but that wasn't the end of the story by any means, was it? Because Hazemans wasn't giving up, and the 2 of them were still racing hard. The 2 Lamborghinis had swapped in the pit stops. That was the moment that Piccioni hit the back of Hazemans.
Yeah, and he got a drive-through penalty for that particular incident, and of course it also led to the end of the Corvette race, the tyre rubbing, the bodywork. But again, a great move up the inside into turn 15 from Bernard Baguette, and well,
yeah. Bernoldi out. He was one of several retirements, wasn't he, towards the end of the race. Cars maybe getting a little too hot in these conditions, whatever. That was Jamie Campbell-Walter making a lunge up the inside to take what was fourth in the end, but no one had any answer to the sheer pace of the Lamborghinis. Marcus Winkelhock came through to take victory, as he had done with Marc Basseng at Zolder earlier on this year in a qualifying race. Can they do the double? That's the big question. They managed it in Belgium, and that's what they'll be aiming to do here at Navarra as well. It's been Lamborghini's day here, but it all might be different when we come back tomorrow. Hope you can join us then. From John and Ben, bye-bye for now.